Hey everyone, good afternoon, good evening. It's 3:45 p.m. We have 15 minutes left in the session. I've closed out a lot of my trades that I've got open. I've still got a little bit of Nvidia that I'm still swinging in here, but outside of that, maybe some SPX 4850s as lottos. But now that we're getting here close to the end of the day, I want to just do a real quick recap of the day. Before I get into all this, as you all know, this is not financial advice. I'm not your financial advice. You're responsible for your own trades, managing your own risk, doing your own research, and always just my opinion on the market. I want this to be real quick. I went into a lot of detail at the beginning of the day today that should have prepared you for what was coming today. I'm going to talk really briefly about Bitcoin. I'm going to get into this really quick on the lower time frames. We were talking in the video this morning. You can go back and take a look at that. I was talking about how we could probably get one more low here before we see a bounce. And we were also talking in the video this morning about divergence and indicators and all of that good stuff. And that's basically what we've got here. We created a lower low, and on the lower time frames, we have a higher low, a much higher low on the indicators. So we've got bullish divergence on the green wave on the hourly on Bitcoin. We've got the yellow and the red wave, which are basically starting to curl up a little bit. So I think there is some merit to there being some continuation to the upside here. My target, at least for the short term, is going to be right here at about 44,000. We'll call it 44,500. What I did is I took a fib from the very top here to the very bottom here, and I've got my 50 is right there at 44,450, 618 right there at 45,500. So are those levels significant? They are, and I'm just going to briefly talk about this, and then we're going to move on. We've got a nice pivot right here, which is in relation to this level, and then we've got, of course, lots of support that existed at that 618. So naturally, I would expect that there's probably going to be resistance when we get to those levels. For right now, things look good. Things look good. We've got some indicators completely reset. The 12-hour and the hourly is reset. We've got some bullish divergence, and even on the 4-hour, let's take a look at the 4-hour before we continue to move on. Again, we have a low here and a low here. We have a lower low on the price, and we have a higher low on the indicator. We were talking about that bullish divergence on the call this morning, or not on the call, on the video this morning rather, that we needed confirmation. We now have a cross up on here after that last 4-hour candle. It is closing pretty darn bullish. So this is all looking really good for Bitcoin to at least have a little bit of a bounce. It could be short term, and we're really only looking at a move up here to this area before we do see further downside. So that is what it is. But now let's take a look at what we're really here to discuss, which is the S&P 500. So we were talking about this. I'm going to pull up the ES chart because this is where really the meat and potatoes are. Great move to the upside today. Did we hit our target? We did. I talked about this very, very specifically this morning. I said, we got this move up, we got a pullback, and it was a pullback to the 618. These are some of my favorite trades to take. We got into equity here. This was the area where we should have been looking to get bullish. All right, now that we have reached our target, just look at the reaction that we've gotten off of it so far. We stopped there. Okay. Now that's not to say that we can't just continue moving up. Absolutely, we can. And really, from an expansion standpoint, if we're looking at a 100% equality from the measurement of this first move projected from the bottom of the second move, we still have legs. We can get up here to 48.85. But let's just wait and see how things go now. You can see I've got a note here. Get short here. Now, that doesn't mean, hey, go all in short. That doesn't mean, hey, close all of your long positions. Not at all. Not at all. I mean, Nvidia probably is going to go to 600 next week. It could happen as early as Tuesday next week. The momentum that's behind some of these things. Now, we've got a weekend coming up. We've got OPEX, options expiring. So next week could look a lot different than it has this week. Nvidia has been a monster, right? We've been able to make so much money off of Nvidia it is actually ridiculous. But now that we're getting up here to this area, this expansion target here to the upside, a move up here to like 600 is probably going to be really close to completing at least a little move, right? We're getting close to an area where I would expect there to be a little bit of pullback before we see that continuation up to, again, like the 680 to 700 range, but I do think we're going to have to take a little bit of a breather. If the momentum continues, I'm happy to continue to take advantage of that. But, it is what it is. All right, we've got 10 minutes till the market closes here. I'm not going to stick around until the market closes because there may be some other things that I want to do going into that. Lifeversity has a question. When I say I'm going by geometry, what do I mean by that? Okay, so when I'm talking about geometry, all right, so just really quickly, when I'm talking about geometry, so looking at Cardano, we were looking at that this morning. So let's just take a look at Cardano. If my machine decides it wants to cooperate. Let's see here, KuCoin, is that the one that I was looking at this morning? We'll find out here in just a second. And if not, I'll put things on here to put it into perspective. So when I'm talking about geometry, what I'm looking for are formations, right? So when I was looking at Cardano, the geometry here was I was looking at a triangle. I was looking at a wedge. This is the type of geometry that you want to be able to identify. This was a perfect trade setup where you could limit your risk and have a really great return, right? So the risk was, hey, if we break down below this low right here at 35 cents, it's probably not going to work out. But the upside was huge, right? So this is one piece of geometry that that I would pay attention to. Another piece of geometry, we're talking about channels. We're talking about a range, a good range. If we take a look at Bitcoin dominance, right? Here is an example of what a range would look like. I'm going to go to a weekly, and my machine is just acting really, really slow today, so apologies for that. Excuse me. But looking at a range here, what we've got lots of evidence here that this range that I've identified here is really important, right? Dominant support down here, we had a breakdown, a little bit of resistance there, but it broke back up, right? But up here, resistance, support, and then once we broke through, we saw, an expansion to the upside. But when we got back into that same range, we went to the bottom, we went to the top, back to the bottom. We found some support here, back to the top. And I said, once we break up above this, we had a good retest and we're starting to see, that move to the upside. What I want to see dominance kind of move back down here, retest that again to about 49% before we see Bitcoin kind of take over, maybe going into into June or July and see that actually go up to about 60%. And I think once that happens, we should be ready for a really serious alt season. But when I'm talking about geometry, I'm talking about channels, I'm talking about wedges, and I'm talking about ranges like this. So these are the types of things that I'm looking at. So just go back to your geometry class in high school, and all a chart is an X and a Y axis. You've got time on the bottom, and you've got your price, going up and down on your Y axis, and just look for patterns. And that's the type of geometry that I'm looking for. All right. I'm going to go real quick. Things, again, worked out really, really well for us. We've got, a significant move going into today, and I think that was a predicted move that I was discussing today when we got into the market open. We went all the way from down here at 477 all the way up to 482, 483. It was only, a 1% move, but that's really significant when we're talking about, the price being all the way up here and making an all-time high and all of that. So you have a lot of people that are going to be talking about that. So hedge your bets if that's your thing, and look for some protection, because we have a weekend coming up. Anything can happen over the weekend. A lot of global events going on, so pay attention to those. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. If you're on the Discord, we'll see you out there. Otherwise, wherever in the world, I hope you're having a good day, good night, good evening. If you need access to Discord, Find all that information, bitdoctor.org. I'm out.